Alright, this one here, 1995 Toyota Camry, missing letters. And there's a history behind this car. This is actually my mom's car. And for all you guys that pick on me for my mom driving the ugly Camry, the story behind it is 120,000 miles. I don't know if we can see. At 120, it needed a head gasket. And I have 246. So I actually had a 98 Camry that I got off of a customer. Needed a timing belt and tires and brakes and a condenser, and it had 140 on it when this one had 190, I think. And I offered it to her and she said, no, I want to hit 200,000 miles. You can see that was a long time ago. But she also prided herself. She worked at Consol Energy, and they built a, here in Southwest PA, and they built a brand new facility in South Point, which is like big rich houses, and she prided herself on having the ugliest car in South Point. So what are you gonna do? That's what my mom wanted. So anyway, I've been waiting for this for 120,000 miles. She has no heat, and like I said, I did the head gasket on it at about 120. It's on its, I think, 5th timing belt now. 2 of them broke, but it's not an interference engine, and it had oil pump leaks and water pump leaks that caused a couple, early timing belt, jobs. But either way, we've just kept it on the road for forever, and it is time. But what I have here now is, I don't like being in a position where you have to get something, and she's newly retired and she doesn't really go anywhere. So we're gonna find her. I think she might even want another Camry just because she loves this car. But I'm gonna try this stuff. Head gasket repair, bars leak. So I've done this one other time with success. So like I said, we're gonna look for a car, but I'm gonna just give this a shot and do a little bit of diagnostics to see, because they want you to, what's happening with this one is it's not overheating, it's actually boiling up, over, I was adding coolant and it was bubbling like crazy. And I have my old emissions machine over there, and you can see at like just 8 parts per million on the top on the HC. So if you have a engine running with a head gasket, it's blowing compression into the radiator. So not overheating yet, but it most likely will. It looks like it's just boiling over and dumping all the coolant over there by exhaust pressure. So we'll do that. Like I said, with this one here, when I pulled it apart at the 120 mark, I didn't find anything obvious as far as a bad head gasket. But when I did a feeler gauge and a straight edge test, I had about maybe 4 thousandths long ways, and tolerance on these was 2 thousandths, and they didn't recommend machining. So all I did was used a die grinder with a steel pad, and I sat there for an hour and just kept polishing the head until I had 1.5 thousandths everywhere I checked with a feeler gauge, and it lasted 120,000 miles. So that was 10 years ago, somewhere in that area. So we're gonna try this stuff, and I'll do maybe a little side experiment with it and just see what it does, and then we'll see how this works. Unfortunately, if it does work, I'm not going to know how long it lasts. So on this video, when she either gets rid of it or it decides to blow up, I'll post that so people know time and mileage. So it had 245, I think. Check out one more time. and it is February 9th, 246. It's 246, 429. Okay, while I have it warming up, I was gonna grab my light, and that made me think about this car. This is an 06 Passat, 2-liter turbo, and there's a timing belt over here on this side, which turns, and then there's a chain driving the camshafts and the high pressure, you know, fuel pump for the direct injection or whatever. And this intake cam is not turning, so I have no compression pretty much. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever done any of these and know what I'm getting into. Is it possible to change a couple valves and put the chain and everything back in, or is it totally destroyed? So if anyone's listening to this part that works on these Volkswagens, let me know if I should even touch it. So this is running. I don't know if it's quite warmed up yet, but even when it was doing it actually cold. But when she came in the other day, you can see I have constant bubbles, and they don't go away. And I actually had to add a gallon to it because, like I said, her complaint was no heat. So you have the telltale sign right there with bubbles, and you can see bubbles. No, not trouble, bubbles. Where am I at right now? Like 9 parts per million on the machine. Nick, aw. So I caught you lifting a big tire. I wondered if you could put this probe and hold it. So I have my emissions machine, and of course you don't want to stick this in the water, but you want to get it as near the bubbling as you can. And if you have a bad head gasket like I do, let's see if I can not stick that in the water and do this. You can see I'm at 17 and 18. I actually condemned this car 100 and some thousand miles ago at 12. So when this thing was hot, you can see I already went up to 18. It's actually not bubbling right now, but it caught the one bubble here. It goes 19. I saw this thing go up, there's 20. I saw it go up as high as 45 the other day when it was hot. And I pull it back out, get back on the 24, get back to my shop air here, and you can see it's dropping. It's back down to 18, 17. So from my standpoint, I already know what's wrong with it, that all the scenarios fit. And like I said, I was waiting for this call for the last 120,000 miles, and it finally came. So there's your proof from just a gas analyzer that you have compression, you know, unburned, partially burnt fuel being pushed through the cooling system. So what they want me to do with this block sealer stuff is, it says that if I have, I won't bother you with all the fine print, but it says if you actually have coolant filling a cylinder like the Nissans do, or compression coming back out of a cylinder, to pinpoint which one it is and pull that plug out and run it for, I think it was 15 minutes at idle, so there's no pressure in the system, because you don't want that forcing whatever this concentration of zinc or whatever the heck's in there, pushing the trail right through the part you're trying to seal. So they want you to run it with a misfire for 15 minutes till it's warm, and then you put the plug back in and run it again at a higher RPM. So I'm going to try to prove which one it is. Alright, so what I have here is I pulled the spark plugs out, and on you know, first inspection, try to keep these in order here. Get into some lighted areas. Now you can see that there is, where my thumb is actually cylinder number 4, and then 3, 2, 1. Now if you look at, you know, originally when I pulled this number 4 one out, I saw that soot, and I'm like, oh man, that one could be burning, but I see some soot there. But then if you look at number 1, I don't know if that's showing up real good, but that is super clean, like it's being steam cleaned. So there's number 1. Roll that around. That's, yeah, it's pretty. The porcelain is ultra white. And then if I just go to number 4 here, if I can get it to actually focus on here, I saw all that buildup. Now it could be burning a little bit of who knows what, but they all look kind of like that, kind of powdery. And they're not that old, but you could see they're worn. So could be, you know, alcohol content or whatever. So I didn't, I actually checked them all, and I did number 1 last. And what I have here is I have my fuel or my compression tester lead screwed into number 1 spark plug hole, and all you have to do is, there's a Schrader valve in there, so this part here is going to snap into the actual compression gauge, and it just so happens to be the same as my air hoses at the shop. So as long as you got to remember, you just got to take, there's a Schrader valve, just a tire Schrader valve that I took out, or else you'll never be able to blow air back down through here. So I'll put this in. I'll try to see if I can get somebody to either turn the engine over or hold the camera. So what I usually do is I'll usually leave my air off, and then I'll hook it up. Hey Nick, could I steal you for a sec? Or you want to hold the camera, or you want to turn the, you want to be my cameraman? It's already, I think it's recording. Yeah, it's already recording. So where your fingers are is the microphone, so
move my fingers?
Yeah. So I'm just hooking my shop air to the compression tester tube, and then I'll turn the air on, and you can hear it going through the valves or whatever, but I want you to concentrate on this filler tube, and I'm just going to turn the engine over until I can get the air to stop hissing, and there you go. There's my shop air.
Bubbles or troubles?
Yep. There's my shop air confirming that I have something wrong in that cylinder. So now that we know what to do and which cylinder is doing it, I'm going to actually run it without the spark plug in number 1 for the first phase, and go from there. Thanks, Nick. There's everybody looking at what I'm doing. What do we got going on here?
It's boiling.
The guys are,
you got a little
holy cow. All right, so what they say that this stuff is not compatible with antifreeze. So I put a flush tee into a heater hose, and I got a garden hose hooked up to it, and it's not quite freezing today, so I can get away with this on our lot.
You're not flushing antifreeze down the drain, are you?
No, I drained it out. I was running water. I drained it out, now I'm running water. Thanks, Nick. So, maybe a little bit of antifreeze. I got a little bit of a misfire going here too. But I'm just running it to get the antifreeze, whatever was left inside the block, out of the system. pulled the drain plug down at the bottom and the rad cap off there, so I'll run it for a minute or two and rev it up to get rid of my misfire. I actually had that plug wire off when I pulled it out here, probably flooded it out a little bit. So either way, they want me to get all the antifreeze out. So that appears to be clean enough. Coming out down there, pretty much like water. So now what they want me to do is, once I have pretty much the antifreeze out, I'll shut the water off and we'll let this drain out, and I'm gonna add this stuff. I believe we run it for 15 minutes and we'll check it out. Alright, so what they want me to do here is, allow the engine to cool down, all that stuff. Put a flush tee in there. If anyone cares to read any of this, but get all the antifreeze out so you don't clog anything else. I guess it really sticks to everything. So, and then here's for hard to stop internal leaks, where coolant's leaking into a cylinder or cylinder pressure is pushing coolant out. Locate that cylinder, which we did. Number 1, remove that plug for best results. So I'm going to run it without that plug before go to step 2. Shake the can well and blah blah blah. How much I use, I'm just using the whole bottle. Fill it with water, reinstall the cap, start the engine. Heater on high, run for 5 minutes or until the thermostat opens, and then allow the engine to cool down, and then reinstall the rad cap, top it off. After you top it off and put the spark plug back in, and then I run it again for 15 minutes, let it cool down again at idle, I think, yeah. And then step 13 is running it idle again till it warms up, and then do it at high idle, like 1500 RPM for 20 minutes, and then you drain it out. I think you flush it again if this quits moving. High idle 1500 for 20 minutes, turn it, let it cool off for an hour, remove the rad cap, drain the system, leave the drain open for 12 to 24 hours. So let it kind of sit in there and crystallize or whatever it does, and then after the 24-hour mark or whatever, flush the cooling system again and then fill it, and then we'll know what we got. So I won't bore you with the whole process, but that's what I'm gonna do. I shook it up real good. At least we can see what the stuff looks like going in the engine. Looks like curdled something. Wow, that may take a while to add that. Maybe I missed a step. Oh yeah, see, I was that kid that didn't read directions that well. It says in a bucket, shake well and mix it with approximately 3 quarts of warm water. So that's what happens when you don't read directions. Either way, that's what it looks like. I'll get that in there and mix this with warm water and do my side experiment. I got a little plan with whatever's coming out of here, so we'll try that, and then we'll hopefully have good results. Alright, so this is going to be my little side experiment. These little shims came out of, like, I think an old Jaguar or something like that for ball joint. Axial play maybe. I'm not even sure, but I had a whole bunch of them laying around, and I was thinking about, got 3 of them here to make like a triple wall metal head gasket, and I was gonna leave a little gap here so this stuff can get in there. And these are old brake pads. And if I clamp it down with a C-clamp to try to simulate, you know, cylinder head torque, when I do my final run on this car up to 1500 RPM or whatever for 20 minutes, as soon as I'm done with that, I'm going to drain the stuff out into a bucket. So I should have good, you know, 180, 200 degree, whatever, water with this stuff in there. And I'm going to let this sit in there for a half hour or so and then pull it out and let it dry and just see what sticks where. I don't know if it's going to be a good experiment or not, but I know with the last stuff I did just the drain pan and the colors that were left in it, so I know it's not, you know, to detail experiment because I'm not dealing with any kind of pressure. I'm just going to soak it, but we'll see what happens. Trying to run this thing outside and it sounds like my tractor. At least I have good compression. So all I'm trying to do is run it until I have good heat and half gauge or whatever when the thermostat opens, so starting to get lukewarm heat. So another couple minutes, and just thought it'd be funny to hear that on camera. Alright, I'm having a hard time getting the thermostat to open here for the first, before I put the plug back in, but from what I'm seeing stuck to this cap already, it's almost like waxy, like kind of fibrous. So if it sticks in the right places, I don't know, maybe it does work. One thing I am noticing here with that plug out of it, even though it's kind of moving around, I think the thermostat opened underneath this fill funnel. I'm not getting the air bubbles that I was getting before without number one in the plug in there. So with that big compression loss. Alright, so after running it for the allotted time, this is what it came out looking like. So what I want to do is, I got my two brake pads clamped together and I have those shims, and I left a gap, probably, I don't know, maybe 30 thousandths or so, and I left a, see how the bolt hole has a notch in it. I lined up a bolt hole here too, so hopefully this stuff will intrude in two spots, and I'll, like I said, I'll just see what it does with surfaces. This is hot. I just pulled it out of the engine. Fan was just cycling, so probably 190, 200 degrees or so. So I'll move this around a little bit, let it soak, and see what it does. I came in this morning, and this is any indication of what it's doing inside the engine. My boss isn't too happy. I'll be scrubbing here shortly. Alright, so I took my C-clamp off of my brake pads, and you can see it has pretty much that white stuff everywhere. And then when I pulled my shims out, I don't know if this will show up, but you can see there's a buildup right there, right there. And when I pull it apart, you can see there is some sticky material that made it to the seam. So whether or not that makes it in the right spot, you know, there's stuff that wasn't there before. So whether or not that hits the right seam and hardens up, it's hard to say. Well, it's pretty sticky. I don't know. We'll see. Alright, so I flushed it out, and from a there's a hope that this thing seals evidence, all that. I don't know if that's coming through good. The cores, there's like buildup now in all the radiator cores. So from a hope it seals standpoint, that's awesome. But from a will it overheat in the summer, if it fixes it, that's another story, because that's pretty hard in there. Light's on, but I'm not getting a good picture. But the crud that's in there, that is in there. So it doesn't look like all of them are clogged, but there is a thick coating of, so that worked way better than my test. There's a coating of sludge, and anywhere where it, like, I guess there was a little bit of antifreeze or something residual, or, I mean, that's plugged up good, so whatever. Okay, it's recording. I only got 1 minute of film. What did you say?
Look at the shit he has in my clean funnel.
Well, look,
From his
man,
mother's car.
it's been running for like a half an hour, and there are no bubbles, and there's all that stuff that's hopefully plugging every hole in it. So I'm gonna call this one diagnosed and proven. And we'll just have to see how long this car lasts. That's about it. So, because I'm not going to put shop air back into that hole and try to blow whatever seal I could have possibly created back out. So, just watch the post. I'll update periodically. What is it? February 11th, 2015. With 246, 429. So we'll see how long it lasts. Say bye, Nick. I'll clean your funnel out. Thanks for watching.